everybody, you have landed on our most recent Hat Chat. I'm Anne-Marie Hoftailing, co-founder of Story Imprinting, where I sometimes wear one of my fabulous hats in the middle of the pandemic because there's nowhere to wear them, and chat with you about real things, about business and personal storytelling. If you like this video or any of our videos, please be sure to hit the like button and also subscribe. And if you could do a little extra and comment in the comments below, that would be amazing, because then the YouTube algorithm gods would love us and we would love you to help us make them love us. So with that said, with no further ado, I want to talk about today's topic, which is origin stories. But before we get started, let's talk about the origin of this hat, which feels, look at that, a little 1920s to me, yeah? Now you may be thinking a number of things. That hat is hideous. That's your opinion. I don't care. I love it. 2, you may be thinking, where in the world is that chick thinking she's wearing this hat? And I'll tell you, I'm wearing it right now to talk to you, in case you're wondering. And where did I get this hat? It's by Donavina Boutique, which means nothing to me, but maybe you can look that up. I actually bought this hat at like a swap meet for something like $20 or something. I think it might have even been less than that. And I just loved it. I think it might be like a little church lady hat, but I don't care. It looks sort of 20s and fabulous, and I could just burst into song at any moment if only I actually sang. So getting back to this idea of origin stories, the reason I think this is really important today is I've been doing a lot of work with some of my executive coaching groups and talking about this notion of the stories you own, the stories you want to share, and the ways in which stories can really save someone. And I don't mean that lightly. I think that for a long time, some of the stories that I didn't want to tell people were because I had a lot of shame around them. Growing up poor, for instance, there's all this stuff that comes with that makes us want to reject that part of our identity. But really, those are the parts and the bits of you that are most interesting and compelling and have the most to offer and serve the rest of the world. I think when you go back to some shiny moment in your life where you did everything right and you won all the prizes and you were at the top of the mountain is less interesting to people than when you were in the dirt climbing up that mountain. That's where all the rich lessons are. And so I want to talk a little bit about my own origin story in terms of, why I love clothing and crazy things like this fabulous hat and where that came from. And one was for sure my mother. We didn't have any money, very, very little money, but my mother was a big thrift store person. I still am, I can afford to walk into Nordstrom's, and I do, and I love that experience. But I love a good thrift store, okay? I love me a bargain. I love a storied item. I love that it's a greener way to shop. I'm not gonna lie, it's my favorite. But anyway, enough about that. So we went to a tiny thrift store in Richmond, and that's where most of my clothes came from. We searched, discount bins and things like that, and put together really fabulous outfits. And the thing my mother was really good about is you didn't have to have money to be clean, well-pressed, and well put together. And that was something my mom always transferred to me. And that idea of you may not control how much money you have, but you can control how you show up in the world. And I don't know that that was a conscious choice of hers, but that's the message it gave to me. You have a lot of control over how you present yourself and how you walk through the world. And one of my mother's really dear friends was this woman named Natalie. And the reason Natalie is so important to my own origin story is Natalie ticked none of the boxes of what we think of as a typical high fashion, beautiful woman. Natalie was very short. She was overweight. She was old and had gray hair, and she was freaking fabulous. Any day of the week, Natalie had on a fabulous caftan and more cocktail rings than anyone should, with a little kitten heel and her hair perfectly coiffed. And Natalie embodied to me the unapologetic embracing of who you are, where you are. She wasn't waiting to get younger, taller, more worthy. She was, in the body she was in, fabulous. And that was really something that, again, I internalized. I don't know that she intended that. I don't know that she ever articulated that to me. She was very much someone who took me under her wing. She's the person who took me to my first beauty shop appointment and got my hair cut at a beauty salon called the Ladybug in San Pablo, California. For those of you who know San Pablo, probably not very many of you. And I was really lucky in the course of my life to encounter women who were not sort of being beaten down by the standards that people thought that they should be fitting. And what that gave me, whether I understood it or not at the time, I was just consuming it, right? Was this sense of entitlement that I got to show up in the world in the way that I felt comfortable, in my body, in my style, regardless of what people thought of me. And I'll tell you, I'm serious. There's somebody who's going to get on this video who's going to be like, that hat is ugly, and who does this woman think she is in this outfit? I can guarantee you that's going to happen, but that's none of my business. That's not my problem. I get to fully embody who I want to be in the world. In addition to Natalie, Dee Martin, who was my mom's dearest friend, we lived with her for some period of time in San Pablo with her son and daughter in a 720 square foot house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 4 kids, 2 women, for I think about a year while my mom was getting back onto her feet. And what I will say about Dee is Dee was 6 foot tall and something, and she was the kind of woman who would still wear high heels and, again, walked through the world like she owned it. And I don't know that I have known more powerful women than those women from when I grew up, and they were women who otherwise didn't seem like they had any power because of the way they looked, because of their lack of social standing, whatever it is. You wouldn't have thought that they necessarily occupied that kind of power, but they didn't need it. And that really brings me to this idea of what you believe about yourself, what you believe you deserve, who you believe you are in the world. And I think so often we have sort of succumbed to this culture of like becoming invisible. You want to wear a certain suit that makes sure you don't stand out. You want to wear a certain dress that makes sure that you're not too noticed. And I think that there's something to be said for, that's okay, by the way. If you're somebody who's like, I'm never going to wear that crazy ass hat, and you're a lunatic, that's okay. I don't think anybody needs to be this. What I do think is you get to be fully you. If your jam is wearing a sweatshirt and jeans 7 out of, 7 days of the week, good for you. But if it's not, and there's a version of yourself that you think is dying to explode, you should try her on and give her a shot. She deserves to take a whirl through the world, because I think it might surprise you about how that makes you feel and how people receive you. I think that I spent a lot of my childhood, it might shock you to know, as an extremely, extremely shy kid. I was not the kid that was asked to the popular lunch table in elementary school. I was somebody who, when I was very young, was invited to play at a friend's apartment because I lived in an apartment building. And these are girls who were never kind to me, but I accepted the invitation hungrily because I was desperate for acceptance. And that invitation, I was probably, I bet, maybe 9 at the time, something like that, or in the neighborhood of there. And these girls were mostly older than me. A couple of them were my age, but it sort of accumulated in these 5 girls locking the door and beating me up pretty badly as a 9-year-old. And I share that story with you because what it really taught me is I could not find my way in to those people. And I would never find my way into those people. And there was no version of me they were ever going to accept. And so I stopped pandering to all of that. And I just became a bigger, larger version of who I was. It was a terrible experience, obviously. My mother was horrified. She later walked me over to the apartment of those girls' parents and sort of wanted them to understand what these kids had done to me. And, I think my mom was terrified that maybe this was going to define me in a really horrible way and mark me in a really horrible way. And I'm sure that for some time it did. But in the long view of that, what I would say is what it really taught me on a deep cellular level was I can't make anyone love me. I can't make anyone like me. I have to love myself, because every day I am going to wake up to me. I am going to look at me in the mirror. You are stuck with you for the rest of your life. That is more true than your spouse, your children, anyone. You are stuck with you for the rest of your life. And so I think the question is, are you living in a version of yourself that expresses the best of who you are? And do you deeply love that version of yourself? And are you willing to be brave enough to fully express that version of yourself? Think about your own origin story and who informed what you thought you were entitled to. I think it will be an incredibly interesting exercise for you to examine the people in your life, in your neighborhood, in your community that you felt told you you could be more, or really sort of beat you down into contorting yourself to be a lesser version. I would love to hear from you. Comment below about how you sort of experienced this and what this brought up for you. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Take good care.